it's good that it should do that. Thank you, Ian. Dan's here. Now, Dan, we're going to talk about your book and what you're doing with your business in a mo. But Dan, your other half, what would you got a blended surname thing?
Well, hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Well, my wife's surname was Jock. It's a Polish surname, D-Z-I-O-K.
Yeah.
And my surname's Grubb, so Grubb, Jock, Grock. I mean, there's
there's a few in there.
But an interesting thing about the surnames, although it's not particularly blending them, is my wife's mother's maiden name was Robak, and a Robak in Polish is a type of small grub.
Whoa!
And of course she meets Grubb, so there's fate.
Grubb, crikey! So how'd you meet a Polish woman? Was she over here? Were you over there?
She was over here, and then shortly after we both went over there, and then our families wrestled away, and we ended up together.
And now you're back here.
We are indeed.
And you were just telling me she's at college at the moment. She's a bit of an artist, but she's studying photography.
She is indeed. Yeah, trying to add another string to her bow.
Which is why Gabby's not here this afternoon, because you and Gabby, do you run your business between you, your e-publishing business?
We certainly do. Yes, It's Fantastic Books Publishing. We do e-publishing. We also do real print publishing as well.
It is a tip for anybody wanting a bit of publicity from me particularly, but anybody on the radio station. What you sent me was totally irresistible. You sent me a note the other day saying that you were combining the title of the well-known book along with one of the things I love, and you ended up with 50 Shades of Gravy.
50 Shades of Gravy.
That's fantastic.
Right.
That's just so brilliant. That in itself should make you a multi-millionaire.
Well, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
That's awesome. So first of all, the publishing business you started when? The electronic publishing business?
The electronic publishing business probably about 8 or 9 months ago now.
Yeah.
We're still quite small. The whole idea of starting the publishing is I worked in charitable fundraising for many years.
Right.
I also worked as an artist's agent. I've since worked for an author's agent, and I do a lot of promotion stuff for Penny, my mother, who you've had on the show quite a lot. So that's where the whole idea came from. But during the course of thinking about what we're going to do and starting a business, etc., we started collating all our old family recipes, and that became the Fantastic Cookbooks range. And you can go and hunt them down on Amazon and Smashwords. They're all there. Just go hunting for Fantastic Cookbooks and you'll find them all. And then, of course, the 50 Shades of Grey wave began as we were beginning to collate all the old gravy and sauce recipes from our family. So I can hear all your listeners thinking bandwagon, and yes, they're probably right to a certain degree. But we decided to call it 50 Shades of Gravy and just go for it. It's not just a novelty book. It is 50 completely standalone recipes for gravies and sauces from about 3 generations of our family, from both of our families.
See, I reckon many people listening to this will have grandma, even great-grandma's cookbooks somewhere kicking around, either textbooks that they had at the time, or in the case of my wife Di, she's got like her grandma's handwritten notes and all, which are brilliant. And as much as anything else, something needs to be done with these things because they're falling apart. So I guess that's what you've done. You've either digitised them in there, or have you retyped them? What have you done?
Well, basically, you've touched on the exact reason why we started on the whole cookbook series. My grandmother made a beautiful recipe for melting moments, some really, really delicious little soft butter biscuits.
Yeah.
And we went to hunt them down, and we found the recipe, and half of it was moth-eaten.
Oh.
We found various recipes for melting moments, and it'd be lovely if your listeners could send in a recipe for us to try, but we haven't found one that comes anywhere near yet.
How interesting.
And so we thought, well, that's pretty heartbreaking. We've got hundreds of recipes here. Let's collate them into something. Let's immortalise them. And that's precisely what we've done. We've now got them in electronic format. For one of our good friends in Hull, Janet Blackman, we created a print version of the 50 Shades of Gravy. And yes, we basically just want to spread them out in as many places as possible, get them in as many people's kitchens as possible to save those recipes, because some of them are 150 years old.
Oh, there was a programme on telly last night on BBC 4, and I only really watched it by accident, but there was the fella on there was recreating recipes from the 1850s, for example, that kind of, if not slightly earlier, and really, really interesting, because he went to, in some instances, he went to the complete extent of, in front of the fire on a rotisserie, and did it, and they looked lovely, and he swears they taste brill. Have you tried any of these recipes, the old ones?
Well, there is a recipe in 50 Shades of Grey, and we've called it Old School Chicken Gravy, which sounds pretty mundane. But in brackets after the title is not for the faint-hearted, because you begin with raw chicken, and for the gravy itself, you tear out all the worst bits of it.
Yeah.
So not just the giblets, which is the classic gravy. We're also talking about the feet here, the beak, the head.
Yeah.
And the depth of flavour in this gravy is absolutely incredible. But yes, the process itself is pretty gnarly, so it's not for the faint-hearted, this one.
Good expression. This guy last night did something with a calf's head. He stuffed a calf's head, and as you say, pretty gnarly, kind of sums up what he was doing with it, but absolutely on a food history level, absolutely fascinating.
Indeed, and the taste.
Yeah.
The taste just doesn't compare to anything you can get out of a packet nowadays.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, there's so many people leaning in the direction of packet gravies now, and it's so easy.
So 50 Shades of Gravy, I think, is a lovely idea, and I'm also well impressed that you found 50 different recipes, but I suppose when you think about it, did you come to 50 reasonably quickly? I mean, is there a book 2 with another 50? What do you think?
Well, book 2 currently has about 22 in the waiting list, but there are so many, and of course, Gabby being from Poland and her family's travelled all over, and there's lots of German connections. My family's spread all over the world, including Saudi Arabia, Australia, so there's an awful lot of tradition we can draw on, and as a result, you know, it's nice to get these sort of gravies and sauces together in one place.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm going to describe you as a publisher because that's the easiest way of describing you and your multi-skills here. Dan Grubb is with us in the studio talking about 50 Shades of Gravy. What about the Fusion project? Tell me about the Fusion thing you've been doing.
As I mentioned earlier, I've always worked in charity fundraising, worked for a variety of charities, and basically the most important thing for a charity isn't for you to put your hand in your pocket and stick a pound in their bucket. It's for you to commit to them, to give them X amount of money every single month on month on month. By doing that, they can, when they're going for extra funding, for example, lottery funding, etc., they can say, we have had pledged over the course of the next 12 months, so X number of £1,000, and so would you match that? Whereas, of course, you can't do that with a pound in a bucket, because you can't guarantee it's not going to be, I think your weatherman put it best, damn.
That's right.
So, the situation we had is wanting to give charitable giving for absolutely everything we do. We're a business, we're in profit, we should give something back. And I think that philosophy should run through every single business, and I can't understand why it doesn't. But for ours, 10% of everything we ever make goes direct to a charity, and we've decided to focus those charities on the particular books we create. So we ran a short story competition, and we created from the winners and 25 runners-up an anthology called Fusion, and it's science fiction and fantasy. Just a mixture of 25 short stories. It's got raves on the reviews. People are really enjoying it. It's only out in e-form at the moment, but when we sell 8,000 copies, we're going to produce a limited edition print version as well. So, you know, hopefully just in time for Christmas. Yeah. And it's got a couple of stories by professional authors as well. It's got Danuta Ray, she's an international award-winning thriller writer based in Sheffield, and Stuart Aiken, who can only really be described as a powerhouse of science fiction and fantasy. Excellent. And he's given us a wonderful story for the book as well.
And people can find those on. I mean, how do they find those? They have to go to your website, or what?
Our website goes live. As I say, we're very small at the moment. Our website goes live on the 22nd of November, and of course, you will be able to buy it in the fantastic bookstore. But if you want to grab hold of it before then, you can go to amazon.co.uk or amazon.com and go searching for it. Obviously, 50 Shades of Gravy is available there. If you just search for Fusion on Amazon, chances are you're going to find an awful lot of razor blades. The brands are available. Of course, But if you search for Fusion Anthology, then it'll leap up. And the artwork on the front has been very, very kindly donated by a Polish artist called Bartek, and he's painted the front for us. And it's a wonderful collection. Obviously, I'm biased, but I really do think it's a wonderful collection and well worth it. Now, 10% of the sales of that are going to the WCRF, which is the World Cancer Research Fund, because we ran it as an international competition, so it had to give to an international charity. Now, 50 Shades of Gravy, we are still giving 10% of the profits away for every sale of 50 Shades. However, because it's a more localised book and because it's our book, we can decide which charities they go to. For the first 1,500 sales of the book, we've decided to give to a wonderful charity very close to our hearts. And it's down in Birmingham, and it's the Friends of Home Nursing in Birmingham. Now, if God forbid you're given a terminal diagnosis by the doctor, and you want to spend your final days at home, these are the guys who'll come in and make your transition, as it were, as comfortable as possible.
Well, countrywide, or are they just in that part of the world at the moment?
That particular charity only covers Birmingham, but with Birmingham being the second largest city in the UK, you know, to London. You know, they can't get outside the Birmingham borders. But what we thought was, we're not a vanity publisher, and so we're not creating hundreds and hundreds of books every year, but there are hundreds and hundreds of charities. So the reason we've restrained the first donation to the first 1,500 sales is in order to leave a gap for the next 1,500 sales to be given to a different charity. And then the next 1,500 sales will go to a different charity still. Now, this 10% donation will continue for the entire life of the book. So if the book's still being sold in 30 years, the cheques will still be being sent in 30 years. And what I thought is, Phil, while I've got you here in the ears of your wonderful listeners, if they'd like to send you suggestions of what they consider worthy charities, then of course we can give the 10% of the of the sale price to their charity.
Well, that sounds like a good idea. So if you've got a charity, you've got a favoured charity that might benefit, well, you would like to benefit from, what kind of money are we talking about, Dan? I was going to plump in and give a figure, but I have no idea.
Well, I think 1,500 sales is going to create in the region of £150 to £200, depending on what format it gets sold on. And of course, if, for example, we end up with 5 or 6 charities, then once we've given the donation to the 6th charity, then the following donation will be back with the Birmingham nurses. And on we'll go through the list. So your chosen charity will stay on the list forever, for the lifetime of this.
I get you. I understand that completely. So if you've got a favoured charity yourself and you'd like me to pass on a note to Dan on your behalf, I'd be happy to do that. It's probably the easiest way of doing it. If you contact me, I'll forward the notes on to Dan Grubb from there. Brilliant. Good luck with 50 Shades of Gravy. Good luck with the Fusion project as well. Good luck with fantastic books. It all sounds terribly exciting. You must be absolutely thrilled with the way things are going.
Really am. Initially, it was a very slow crawl, and it did feel very much like pushing a huge, great mossy stone uphill. Every time we stopped for an hour, we looked back, everything slipped back. We need to begin again with the marketing, promotions. You know how these things go. But now we're really starting to build up some momentum, and the only way we build up momentum is by people supporting us as a local East Yorkshire business.
Good, mate. Good to see you. Thank you. I'm sure we'll chat again. Absolutely.